Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code FOREVER. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Aftermath on the Hawks Eye podcast. Bryce Coutts. I'm your guest host tonight. I guess is the way we're doing that. This is kind of an unofficial version. If you're looking at your screen right now and you're wondering, what do you mean Hawks Eye? What the hell is happening right now? Because I see 4 dudes on my screen right now that I know are part of the Seahawks Syndicate. Well, this is an unofficial version of the Seahawks Syndicate. I'm Dan. That's Bryce. Brandon Kane of the Hawks Nest. Mookie Alexander, managing editor of Field Goals. We are sitting here coming to you live from Mobile, Alabama, side of the Senior Bowl. But we're not going to talk a lot about the Senior Bowl tonight. In fact, if you want to see our thoughts on what we saw today at the first 2 practices of the week, as soon as we're done here, I'll be uploading our recap to my current now saved Seahawks Forever YouTube channel. But the Hawks Eye already up for you to see. Our thoughts on the first 2 days of practice. Cold as hell is basically our overriding thought. But we have more things to talk about, more important things to talk about, right? Mookie, Brandon, Bryce, because the Seahawks are in the damn Super Bowl, right? And Brandon, by the way, we watched your reaction to the final play of the game today, and that was fantastic. Excellent work.
Oh, thank you, man.
Excellent work. We're going to be here in Mobile all week. We will get much deeper into the Senior Bowl as the week progresses. After we cover what we're talking about tonight, things ramp up. First day of Senior Bowl, a lot of install, a lot of walkthrough stuff. Very boring. Not as good a class this year as we've seen in the past. Tomorrow the pads come on and Brandon shows up here in Mobile, and so we'll kind of take it from there. But let's do this, you guys. For the 4th time in their history, the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl, coming off that fantastic, thrilling win over the Rams on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. They are now 4-0 in NFC Championship contests, 0-1 in AFC Championship games. It'll remain that way forever, presumably. And we're going to play the New England Patriots in 2 weeks in Santa Clara on the San Francisco 49ers home turf. Bryce, we're now 48 hours after the fact. Has it sunk in yet? How are you feeling about the game and the fact that the Seahawks, this Seahawks team, this young Seahawks team in Mike McDonald's 2nd year, going to the Super Bowl?
I think it sunk in for me, Dan, when we're sitting in SeaTac Airport and all you see is blue and green. Seahawk fans getting back to go wherever they need to go home after they all came in to Lumen and they made that place rock. It was special to see it. And the crazy thing about these games are the Seahawks always seem to win the tight game in these NFC championships. Outside of 05, every single Seahawks championship win has been something that's been decided by less than 7 points. So it would be fitting that it didn't do anything else versus the Rams in making us all sit on the edge of our seats until the last 3 seconds where you only knew it was real when you see Brandon Kane jumping out of his seat, yelling, Nuku ran out of bounds. He slid out of bounds. It's over. So, yeah, it's pretty real. It's sunk in now.
It was a great way to relive that moment because I think all of us, when we were watching it live, thought that Nakua got out of bounds and there would be 3 seconds left, and we were looking at a Hail Mary, right? And Brandon, enjoying the moment with your brother, right? Was that brother Kane?
And my brother
that was
in the
fun.
house, had the family over, and it was great to just, talk about just an extra cherry on top. That's what we should call this season, the cherry on top on the cherry.
Yeah, I think we've talked many times throughout the season about how we all thought this was kind of a year early in their progression, that maybe this next year is what we would have expected to see this type of year from. Let me ask you this. Let me stay with you, Brandon. Bryce mentioned they always win the close games. Well, they didn't win 3 of them this year. The Seahawks 3 losses this year, now 16-3 on the season by a combined 9 points to the 49ers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and LA Rams. How much are you a believer in how those lessons carry over and the fact that they were in those games up till the last play, didn't come out on top, and then they win? I think we're at 9 straight games now. How much does A have to do with B and equals C there in your mind?
I think maybe a little bit, but I also come back to the thing that just stands out to me, and maybe I'm in my own way with this, in that this team has so much room for error in order to win football games. And that they don't have to have, you have those teams that have to have everything perfect, or those teams with the flaw, like we could say maybe the Rams at times in the past this year where, well, fourth quarter leads, you let them back in. It's not the case with this team and the way that they're set up, and that stands out to me in that they can have some mistakes, they can make some errors, and they can still beat you badly. And so you mentioned those games, but if you think about those 3 games beyond the points, you've got one driving down, it comes off of a helmet. It takes kind of that random moment. We're in the midst of driving down when that goes off the helmet. You're in the midst of driving down against the Niners when Bosa happens to make a tremendous play. And he's a great player. Great players make great plays in big moments, right? That's going to happen. But still, you were in the midst of just still about putting that thing away from them. It's not like you've been put down badly, or just the score indicated it's close, doesn't really indicate how, it was truly a much bigger beatdown or whatnot. And then, of course, you've got the Rams game where it took a miracle punt. It almost takes like a miracle type of play from an opponent or whatnot to take you down, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think that that's a testament to how strong this team is universally all the way around, more than it even is to me the lessons. So I think it's a good question to ask about those things. Kind of every loss you're going to learn something with, but I just, don't you feel the same way in that this team isn't just a Super Bowl team by getting here. It's a Super Bowl team by the amount of the greatness they've built to get here and by how ultimately strong they are.
Yeah, and Mookie, I'll let you piggyback on that. I think it's a great point that this team also can just win in so many different ways. And I think that's a mark of a really good team. We've seen 12, 13 win teams before in this league, but if they aren't allowed to play a specific formula on any given Sunday because another team takes something away, they can't win. The margin for error is much wider. This one, they can beat you in any number of ways, and that's where, like, you know what? When you've been doing this as long as we've been doing and watching the game as long as we've been watching and talking about it, like we've heard all the cliches. We've heard all the slogans and the catchphrases. And Mike McDonald loves his catchphrases and slogans. 12 is one, MOP, all that stuff. But it clearly works because we see the manifestation of it on the field. Mookie, can you remember another Seahawks team, maybe even going back to Super Bowl 40, or even the first year with the LOB in the Super Bowl championship year? I don't feel like those teams could beat you on certain days when a team takes something away. And I can think of some specific examples, but you're the historian. Does this year feel different in that way?
Yeah, because they're not front runners. I mean, they lead almost all the time. They've led for about 113 some odd minutes of 2 playoff games. But when they are down, they don't fold. So look what happened at the end of the first half of this game. People were probably fearing the worst when Seattle goes 3 and out when they're trailing 13-10 and thinking, Rams are going to get the ball back. They're probably going to score again. Things are about to go out of whack. No, they end up with a touchdown at the end of the first half to take the lead. And then in the blink of an eye, after a muff punt, they're up 24-13. The previous Rams game, they're down 16 in the fourth quarter. And this was the real test for the Seahawks. They haven't been down by more than 14 in any other game this season. And they're able to come back and win against that Rams team, a Rams team that has basically been like Seattle, only losing close games. When I think of the 2005 Seahawks team, it was kind of a redemption type of thing because 2004, they just blew so many leads. They dropped so many passes and it cost them their season. 2005, they had so many clutch wins that will live on forever for at least childhood me, like the improbable comeback against Dallas. You're down 10-3 with a minute to go and you win the game in regulation. That was the moment Big Play Babs was born. The Giants win with Feely's missed field goals and Seattle's still able to gut that one out. And that was kind of the obvious sign Seattle was a real team. When you think about the Legion of Boom teams, though, it took like 3 or 4 years for Seattle to win a shootout. Like, I believe the stat was the Seahawks didn't win a single game with Wilson until 2015, the Pittsburgh game, in which the opponent scored more than 24 points. So this Seahawks team can win shootouts. They just won one. In fact, they've won 2 against the Rams. They can win the ugly grind-out games like they did against the Colts, 18-16 against Grandpa Phillip Rivers. They can win by blowouts. They can win in ho-hum fashion. They can struggle for a half like they did against Atlanta and against Carolina and blow the doors off you in the second half. Or they can go up 35-0 in the first half and then never look back. So this is as well-rounded a Seahawks team as I think we have ever seen because they are that dangerous on offense and defense and special teams on a consistent basis. I mean, it's basically 2 teams. It's this one and the 2013 team at the Super Bowl. And obviously that team won the Super Bowl. But this one it's right up there in the way that they crush you, because their point differential is even better than the one that won the Super Bowl. I mean, we are looking at this as an all-time great Seahawks team, and people are already talking about it as an all-time NFL team. Like, by DVOA, this is already one of the best teams we've seen, at least as long as DVOA is charted over the last 50 seasons. So this is beyond my wildest dreams as far as what the Seahawks could accomplish this year. So forget about, are they a year early? No, they're already here. And you know what? Before we move on, I think some of the seeds were planted last year. When you lose the game against Minnesota, against Sam Darnold, lose it late, that basically killed your playoff hopes. Or lose the Rams game the way you did with Geno throwing the 3 picks and then not getting a yard with 2nd and 3rd and 1, and then getting beaten in overtime. They had some tough losses last year and the year before that with Pete, and many of those guys were on the team. Many of those guys who are on this team were on those teams. So it has been kind of a learning process, and boy, they have passed the test so far.
I want to ask our quarterback guy here, because we're 11 minutes into this stream now, and we haven't uttered the word Sam Darnold yet. And that was
I'm looking forward to this.
That was the big narrative going into the postseason. And then even in the divisional round, they beat the 49ers in a dominant fashion. And yet, you know, the constantly moving goalposts when it comes to Sam Darnold, a lot of his critics and skeptics out there were still saying, yeah, but he didn't have to do much. The team carried him. And then he goes out on Sunday, and you were looking at some stats today that put into historical perspective how good Darnold's performance was on Sunday. Not just as a guy who coaches quarterbacks and sees it with his own eyes, but that historical perspective. Share it with us.
So here's one thing I'm going to start off with. On the syndicate, as you all know, I got a little bit testy
here we go.
when it came with how we standardize Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks and what the standard is for the Seattle Seahawks quarterback. And everyone wants to throw Russell Wilson as the standard. And I kind of pushed back on that narrative a little bit by saying, hey, we're talking about a guy that was carried by a defense and a run game in beast mode for 2 Super Bowl runs, because when it was all put on his shoulders and all those other factors weren't there, Russ performed well, but not well enough to get us past a wild card or divisional round. So why is that the standard? When you watch what Sam Darnold did on Sunday, that goes down, in my opinion, as the greatest playoff performance by a Seattle Seahawks quarterback. 1. 2, it is a top 4 NFL quarterback performance, where the only guys above him are Dan Marino, Matt Ryan in 2016 on his Super Bowl run. And we're not talking by much in QBR. We're talking like minuscule. But we're talking about Sam Darnold having a better overall playoff game performance than Patrick Mahomes, than a Tom Brady. So when can we now stop this narrative that this guy cannot win the big game, because that's out the window? Why can't we just now look at this guy as a franchise quarterback and the guy that, who knows, maybe when it's all said and done and his career's over in Seattle, he might be the one we actually say is the standard for winning and being a successful quarterback in Seattle, more so than Russell. I'm just saying, it's one of those things, when I watched his performance on Sunday, there was something about it that was just different. Like, he outdueled Matthew Stafford, something that I don't think a lot of people, and Brandon, I feel like some people didn't think was possible.
I don't. I think, and I what I really would love to know from you on this, with your perspective, Bryce, in specifically coming from the coaching angle and watching quarterbacks, can you talk to a little bit about, you know, we can see the statistics and how sparkling they are on this, but speak to a little bit about more within this, some of the depths of the things he was doing in this game that are, I think, what you and I would look at as advanced quarterbacking, for lack of a better term.
The biggest things I noticed with Sam was understanding the moment more. We're talking about a guy took some sacks in this game at the right times. Didn't force the ball into situations where I didn't see a single pass in this game where I went, oh, Sam, like, why are you putting it there? Why are you throwing it into triple coverage? Like, he knew what he was looking at and was able to either check into something he liked better or stay with it and get off his progressions faster. Like, I'll put an example, Brandon, is the Bobo touchdown. You looked at that play, there's a couple things on it that show his growth as a quarterback. Being one, he goes to do what should be a reverse out play action, and he doesn't because he sees JSN pointing at the corner that's now creeping in with inside leverage on his inside leg. Then he understands, based on what their concept is, and he's got Bobo running a cop route, which is a corner post route. He understands the safety rotation now. They're going to bring the corner, they're going to roll the safety over now, and they're going to run an invert cover 2. Well, what happens on that play? There's 3 key pieces. It's the JSM pointing out. It's Sam identifying what they're doing and realizing, okay, my right side of the field is now gone. It is now Bobo one-on-one backside, or I'm turfing this ball. And he goes to do what would be on this play. And normally he'd reverse out left, fake to Walker on like a dive, and then set up in the pocket. Well, Walker, he completely aborts it and goes straight to the defender coming off the edge and blocks him. And Sam just straight dropbacks and throws a dime in the middle of the field to Bobo. That is understanding what you are getting from that defense and a tendency and not being surprised by it. And there were some other throws in that game, like understanding he had the one-on-one with Shaheed early on that game and just letting it rip, which I know is something you and me have been begging for since Shaheed got there, is just throw it deep to the guy and let him go get it when you get that outside press and that safety's not there to help. But again, recognizing those things, those little details as a quarterback coach, as a guy that coaches the offensive side, when you have a quarterback that is now picking that up, as a play caller, okay, we can get into some things now because you actually are seeing the game at a different level than you were, say, 2 times ago against the Rams in week 11, even in week 16. You never saw Sam put that ball in harm's way like you did in even week 60 when he had the 2 interceptions, because I think he's finally understood there's the moments to let it rip versus the moments of, I need to rein myself in and understand, hey, the defense got a good play on, and it's something that's not going to work for us, so I'm going to take my sack here.
I feel like it was a culmination of the last 8 weeks or so, too. We talked about this tonight, and we tried to come up with different analogies. One that I threw out there was like Olympic athletes. They'll train in Colorado Springs, right? They'll train at above mile-high altitude so that they get used to that thinner air. Then they come down to sea level, and everything's easier. After that Week 11 game against the Rams, so Sam threw the 4 picks. And the team almost still came back and win. But that's really when the avalanche of skepticism and concern and everything and the criticism was levied on Sam. And the narrative that he can never do this. He could never overcome that. He could never win in the playoffs. And then we saw an adjustment the next 4 or 5 weeks where the team won. They haven't lost since, obviously. But he was playing more cautiously, a little bit more hesitant. The big-time throw percentage was way down because also the tight window percentage was way down. He wasn't taking risks. We were seeing him throw the football way more often, grounding it, dirting it when he needed to, taking sacks, knowing that they could live to play another day. And I think we were all concerned. We talked about it on the show that if you stay in that mindset, then it takes away your mojo, really. It takes away what makes him good, and that's belief in that arm and that elite arm talent and letting it do what it can do. It feels like he had to do that to kind of reset his focus and his mindset about how to approach those tough moments. And then when he got comfortable with it, and at the same time the team was kind of being built up around him and playing better in certain areas, it feels like the last 2 weeks he was back to the Sam Darnold we saw the first 9 or 10 weeks, where now he's not afraid to rip it again. Brandon, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially you think about the JSN throw down the seam, where that's the kind of throw that I think in this period you're talking about, maybe you went down a little bit less on those kind of throws.
He doesn't make that. He doesn't make that throw in Tennessee or Atlanta. He doesn't.
Yeah. And that's where when you come to, like Bryce said, on an opening throw and you get that opening throw off to Shaheed, and it's like, and this is one place too, I'd like to ask all of you guys on this, where there's a wondering I have on this, with Sam, I think that last thing holding him back from this step to the best version of himself as a pro and what it will be as he's in his physical prime now. We all know that there's got to be some little spot of confidence where, he's putting the best face on him through this stuff, but the guy's been facing a storm of people telling him he ain't jack crap and that he'll never amount to anything. And it's not just been this year, but he's been here for years. To have a moment like this that maybe you can break through from a confidence angle. And it would not surprise me, at least if you see this guy, it's almost like what I felt like from the second Rams game, where it was like you slayed the dragon. You showed you did the thing, and it was like from that, bam, you're firing forward and going. And I feel like the same thing from this, where even off that throw with Shaheed, it was like the perfect thing at the perfect time of the game because, yeah, I can go do this. I got all the ability. Yeah, I should have confidence in myself. I put the work in. I've got the ability. I've got the arm talent. I can be every throw in the book. I've been in this league for years. I can see everything coming for the most part. Let's trust in this and let's go. And I feel like you're getting a little bit of that, don't you, from your guys' perspective in this, maybe of that last little impediment, not a major impediment. Maybe that last little thing kicks free here, though.
And I think it's a great point because I think his transformation and his kind of coming out of the cocoon, right, as a new beautiful butterfly happened during that game, week 16, because we saw the whole Sam Darnold experience, right? We saw the 2 picks early in the game, and you couldn't help but think, here we go again. And then the way he was able to come back from that, being down 16, come back and win that game with some big time throws, it kind of felt like that sort of finished off that storyline. Mookie, what was your favorite moment after the game on Sunday? Because as we're having this conversation over the last few minutes, mine was, I know for a lot of people, it was the "we don't care" line from Mike, right? For me, it was something else Mike said. And I think sometimes we like to assume that these athletes just live in a bubble where they're protected. And a lot of them will say, like, I don't pay attention to Instagram. I don't pay attention to social media. I don't know what's out there. We've seen 2 examples in the last 7 days of players being brutally honest and transparent about that not being the case. One was Anthony Bradford being on with Seattle Sports 710 last week before the game, talking about how he heard the noise. He heard the narrative. He hears the criticism and the viral clips and all that. But the other one was when Mike McDonald said post-game, Sam shut a lot of people up today. Mookie, what was your favorite moment of that whole post-game experience?
That was exactly it, because in some ways it was the best possible narrative buster, if you will, for Darnold, where the defense was not at its best, and yet there were still some big moments. It's a little bit chilly in the Pacific Northwest still, so there was still some blanket coverage.
It's colder here.
It's colder here, but it's not going through with the spring well. But there's some blanket coverage here in my Seahawks throw blanket.
How's that heat, Bryce? You got the leg bouncing.
Yeah, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, but I wasn't when we were sitting out at Mobile today, Brandon. You're going to need to bring your parka, my friend.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys don't get to laugh at me. I'll be in 4 layers. I'll be looking like the kid from A Christmas Story.
And yet King Ginger here, still on a 37-degree day. Got sunburned. Back of my neck is sunburned as hell. So yeah,
that takes some doing. What was I going to say?
Someday I'll learn.
It was a narrative buster in the perfect way for Darnold, because if, say, Seattle won 30, if they won the same way that the Niners beat the Packers several years ago with Jimmy Garoppolo through 8 passes, and they were able to win so easily because the Packers could do nothing and the Niners rushed for 300 yards, that probably answers no questions about Darnold. This game was on his shoulders. It had to be, because the running game for Seattle was not great after the first quarter. I mean, there was like maybe 1 or 2 good runs after the first quarter, after the opening drive, really. 2 drives, I guess you could say. And every time the Rams scored, it felt like Darnold was ready to just send them right back, or at least have a clock-killing drive. And I think what's most telling is after the turnover on downs, after Spoon breaks that pass up on 4th down, I think that a lot of coaches would have been willing to rely on running the ball once they were out of bad field position, rely on running on 1st down, run on 2nd down. Here's 3rd and obvious. We're going to put everything on our quarterback right here. No, they were throwing play action on 2nd down with 2:20 left in the game. They were going for the dagger. On the play where Cooper Kupp got held and the pass was incomplete, like if that pass is on target and JSN catches it, game's over, because I think you can decline the penalty in the clock and run. Like, that tells you the confidence that Kubiak and McDonald had in Sam Darnold. And the stats, here's one telling stat about the game and why you can make this case that Darnold outdueled Stafford, who was fantastic, of course. 3rd down, the Rams killed Seattle on early downs. But on 3rd down, Sam Darnold was 6-9 for 102 yards and a touchdown. Matthew Stafford was 0 for 6 for 0 yards. Seattle's defense got killed on early downs, but they did not give up a 3rd down conversion via the pass. Meanwhile, Darnold was delivering on 3rd down repeatedly, whether to Kupp or to Walker, or I think he had one play to JSN, the one-handed catch. He was so on point in situational football. He was taking his checkdowns when he had to. He was in such command of the offense. He never looked panicked. I mean, even like the drop snap. Now, maybe Darnold of a few years ago might have been willing to pick that up and try to make something happen. No, just eat it, plays over, the drive is over.
Maybe 2 months ago.
Maybe even 2 months ago. So, yes, that was a narrative buster extraordinary. I don't normally listen to some of these talk shows on Fox or ESPN or whatever, but it was so gratifying to hear them all have to backpedal a bit about what they thought of Sam Darnold and have to give him his props, because it was like it was a coronation of the Rams. I'm not saying that everybody was picking the Rams, but like it was such a Rams heavy angle to this game in the lead up. And it was like, the Rams offense against this number one defense, and very little attention was paid, if at all, to what about the Seahawks offense against the Rams defense that's been struggling a bit. And against the defense that has been struggling, Sam Darnold shredded them. So all the disguised coverages that were giving Seattle trouble for, the previous two meetings, torn apart. So for Sam, I'm so happy for him. As a former skeptic turned a neutral Darnold person when he was signed, I've been won over totally. Like, this is an all-time performance by a Seahawks quarterback, given the circumstances and given the stakes and given the actual stats. The stats don't lie. He was that good.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say there's somebody else that I think we're all happy for coming out of this game too. If there's anyone else on the team that has endured as much criticism as Sam Darnold has, at least top five. Anthony Bradford's probably a close second. Reek Woolen's up there. Ken Walker's had a very interesting kind of up and down roller coaster of a career with the Seahawks. Had the great rookie season. We all expected greatness from him after that. And then some of the frustrating injuries. There were like training camp, even when we were all together in training camp, there's a lot of kind of mystery and intrigue around how they were managing his load. And we were trying to read things into what McDonald was saying, Kubiak was saying, tone. We just weren't sure what his future was. And, I think I know where all you guys stand, but I know at the beginning of the season, I assumed that this is going to be the last year of his rookie deal. He's going to walk. Good, talented running back, but there were too many inconsistencies, too many question marks, and running backs are easy to find. I think about 2-3 weeks ago, we all kind of agreed that this is a guy that we want to bring back. Now he gets a chance in the biggest game the Seahawks have played in 11 years with Zach Charbonnet, his running mate, guy who gained 800 yards and scored 12 touchdowns this year as a complimentary back, on the sidelines, out with the ACL. It's all going to be on Walker, and he was really fantastic, and that was fun to see.
Yeah, it was really good to see K9 have the effect that he did in the game. And the biggest part of it, I don't even know if it was the running impact he had, because like Mookie said, the running game kind of went away. It was him as the receiver. Like, it was 4 catches for 50 yards on top of his 62 yards on the ground and the 1 rushing touchdown. But him now becoming a factor in that passing game is what makes his passing game more explosive than what it was for a couple of weeks there, where it kind of got a little stagnant. And it's something that me and Brandon and Dan, I know we talked about. It's like, why was Kubiak so used to throwing to running backs in New Orleans and it disappeared here? Like, why were we not getting the running backs involved? Like, when the run game isn't necessarily working, use the extension of them in the flat in the pass game to get that running game going. And it made me laugh yesterday when I'm sitting there getting ready to board the plane and stuff, and I'm listening to Chris Sims talk about this matchup in the Super Bowl and saying, well, guys, Seattle's got a problem. They got to find somebody other than JSN to be their target, to be their guy. And I'm sitting there like, did you even watch the game? Like, Cooper Kupp was a factor. K9 was a factor. Barner had some catches. Like, Shaheed had his 1 for 51. Like, you had a whole group that had 193 receiving yards. And yes, JSN was the main guy, but he is your number one receiver. He is supposed to be that. So to go there and be like, oh, you've got a problem. Like, you don't think Vrabel and them are going to be able to dial things up? Right. Teams have been trying to do it all year long and haven't been able to, because then all of a sudden A.J. Barner comes alive. And now K9 is going to be a factor with the run game and the catching the ball out of the backfield. So, like, when I hear lame analysis like that, I'm like, dude, like, don't bother wasting your breath on national television, spewing that kind of crap. Just actually dive into it, watch the game fully, and understand how the Seattle Seahawks offense functions.
And also, Brandon, if a guy in an NFC Championship game going up against a defense that's given you problems in the past, and is focusing on taking JSN away. If you go 10 for 153 and a touchdown, why throw to anyone else? Like, how is that a problem?
Well, again, too, it's not like, well, like to Bryce's point on a couple things here again, it's not just every one game here and then the fifth game here and then the seventh game here. You've been working him all season long. That's why he was on a literal record-breaking pace throughout the course of this year. Again, to Bryce's point, on this halfway into the year, stack boxes stop, blitzes stop. Now everybody goes to cover 2 shell. Now everybody's like, okay, now we're going to wind the coverage JSN's way. That didn't work particularly all that great. I mean, he still found effectiveness. And then the third part of this being the Shaheed play shows the problem with this. Because if you want to try to do 2 things at once on a particular play, which is number 1, we're going to roll coverage over with the safety to JSN. Then number 2, we want to bring another safety down so we can squeeze down in the short routes that the Seahawks want to run, the in-cutting routes Seattle wants to run. But then number 3, we're going to choose to have not even press coverage. If that guy's 2 yards off of coverage on Shaheed, he's still going to outrun that guy up in space. And you're giving him basically a takeoff to go get that. I mean, that's the easiest 9-route throw read to make. So me and Bryce been hammering this on him. Is it's like, yeah, it's there on the tape, but this is really easy for Sam. You just kind of just read off the safeties, see the press, and then you can go to it. So it's not just as easy as like, we'll just double team to this guy. Back to Bryce's point. There's a lot more complexity. Teams have been trying to do it. It's not going to work. And if anything, you're going to put yourself in probably worse situations. I mean, I'd love to see you try, for instance, on the old, I love that we use McVay's stuff against him, by the way, in that with the shotgun with JSN, this new usage of him in shotgun as a running back. Like, how do you double out of there, guys?
Yep.
How are you going to run the bracket out of there? What are you going to, you're going to draw 2 guys up and then get a guy lace you up over the top on a corner route? Because that's just what's going to happen. It just isn't that easy. It's not, this ain't the Belichick 2019 era that in that same clip, Bryce, that's what he referenced. Oh, he's a Belichick yak. Like, there's a reason Bill Belichick's not in the league anymore. Defenses have changed. You can't just do the same application.
The release on that 9 route was so great. Just getting the outside leverage immediately. And I just, Mookie, I want to ask you something because again, I love your big picture perspective and your grasp of the history of the Seahawks, historical perspective, always impresses me. We can't talk about anything that's happening with the Seahawks right now. We can't talk about 16 wins without talking about the offensive line. And coming into this season, it was the biggest story. There were moments over the offseason that I really felt for John Schneider because he couldn't go to the freaking grocery store without being hounded by 10, 15, 20 people in Newcastle, wherever it is in Bellevue, where what are you going to do about the offensive line, John? What are you going to do about the offensive line? And we all heard it on all our channels and on field goals. And when we would do stuff together, nobody ever had one answer. It was wash the whole group out, get 5 new guys, go spend $100 million in free agency, draft offensive linemen with your first 3 picks. That's the only way you're going to fix this. They make one move, and they take Gray Zabel in the first round. Then they make a second move, and that's bringing in John Benton, along with Clint Kubiak, Rick Dennison, and the whole staff. They go from a bottom, like literally 30, 31, 32 in every measurable metric for offensive lines over the last however long you want to go back, 7 or 8 or 9 years. This is a 10-year problem. Top 10 to 15 in every statistic this year. Half as many sacks allowed. Over 160 yards rushing the last 6 games of the year up until Sunday. It's really, no matter which way you slice it, it's pretty remarkable. How do you quantify, Mookie, how much better in one offseason they finally made this long-time Achilles heel?
Yeah, if we're going to go on some freezing cold takes, after the Rams lost last year, I wrote that if John Schneider doesn't if John Schneider doesn't change his philosophy in the offensive line, it's time to move on. Because I was getting frustrated. I mean, that was the game where Connor Williams, I think that was his last game of his career because he snapped the ball over Geno's head like 3 times. We watched Michael Jarrell get destroyed. We watched, what's his name, Laken Tomlinson get turnstiled and Bradford have a brutal game. Even Cross struggled a bit. It was just it was a disgraceful showing. And I'm sure many other Seahawks fans were kind of fed up that we keep watching. It's Groundhog Day. It's the same story over and over again. And it wasn't for lack of draft capital either, considering how many draft picks they spent on the offensive line.
More than anybody in the league over 5 years. Yep.
Yes, but we've certainly gone through our fair share of offensive line coaches, some bad free agent pickups, some trades that didn't really work out as well as hoped, like the Gabe Jackson trade, speaking of investment in the offensive line at guard. But
Luke
this
Jokel.
Yes, the Luke Jokel, Jamarcus Webb, Bradley Sowell era. I mean, just saying that made Brandon leave. I mean, he just left in disgust. I think he's already going to see you guys at the Senior Bowl now. Anyway, this was a masterclass for Schneider because Ray Zabel was the don't overthink it pick. I would have been fine with Donovan Jackson. I was higher on Jackson just because of him being at Ohio State. And by all accounts, he had a good year with the Vikings on a bad offensive line. But Gray Zabel looks like he could be an all-pro guy very soon. I mean, he has been very good. If this is as good as he ever gets, he's a starting caliber guard. And you have to be thrilled with that. And normally it's just one or two little pieces. And I would also argue that having a swing tackle, and, just a versatile backup offensive lineman also means the world. I mean, George Fant didn't work out. I consider that more bad luck than bad process for Schneider.
Sure.
But instead of relying on Stone Forsythe, or like a failed draft pick or a bad free agent signing, Josh Jones being baseline competent for the 3 games Charles Cross was out, that was huge because how often
saved their season.
How often have we seen when Cross or Lucas is injured, or back in the day when Okun got hurt, which was a lot, like the backup left tackle would come in and look like one of the worst offensive linemen we've ever seen, which is common because a lot of backup offensive linemen are not very good and are not starting for a reason. But this offensive line looks so much better. I'm not saying it's elite. It isn't. But it is the basis of an offensive line that you can have for under contract for many years. Cross is already signed. Lucas is already signed. We'll see what happens at center. I know we've been beating up on Bradford late, and unfortunately that last game was that was every bad thing about Bradford in one. But he's been playing much better. Like that
was the full Anthony Bradford experience. Yeah, because there's some great reps too.
Yeah, I got to admit that was a pretty rough showing. But at left guard, Zabel, of course, you think he's going to be under your rookie deal for the next few years. You've got continuity there, good continuity. And this is exactly what we had hoped for, draft and develop, and that's what they're doing. And for Schneider, it's a major feather in his cap. They nailed the Zabel pick, and they nailed the offensive line coach pick. And I also think what helps an offensive line, I have to circle back on this, a quarterback who runs the offense very well and gets the damn ball out on time. So the other day I called Darnold like a super Hasselbeck, where he's a better athlete. He's got a better arm. But the thing with Hasselbeck, I know he played with Walt and Hutch and Hall of Fame level offensive linemen, but Hasselbeck at his best, he ran the offense, a West Coast offense, precision, timing, get the ball out. That goes a long way toward helping your line when you're not destroying the integrity of the play, which is why Seattle had an above average sack rate for every year that Russ was quarterback. It's like, yes, those lines were bad, but even when the lines were better, like Russ sometimes would create his own problems. Darnold's not
Gino
Russ.
too.
So Sam Darnold's got like a Hasselbeck level sack rate, 5%, 4%. That's not easy to do. So it's kind of like multiple things at play, but by far the proper investment in the offensive line is what Schneider should get lauded for.
It's a great point about Josh Jones. And I'll say, because we've been so concerned with the lack of quality play from the starters for the last 10 years, forget about the backups. But Jalen Sundell goes out with a knee injury, misses 4 games. Oluwatimi comes in in his stead and plays so well that actually the turnaround in the run game kind of happened while Olu was in there and then went to another level when Sundell came back. I said all that to set Bryce up for a nice softie. I'm just laying one right down the middle because, Bryce, you got an opportunity to talk to a gentleman today for about 15 minutes who played offensive line in the NFL for a long time and now is just simply one of the coolest and most fun and best analysts out there at breaking this stuff down. Got to meet Brian Baldinger and chat with him a little bit today and talk about offensive line play. And Bryce, you asked Baldinger, how would you approach the offensive line this offseason going into 2026? What did he say?
Keep it together. Keep the 5 together.
Run it back.
He basically told me Anthony Bradford has gotten better. He's now a starting caliber guard in the NFL, which I agree with and I think is there. He likes what Sundell's doing. He likes the fact they've got Olu, and his basic, kind of assessment of the Seattle offensive line is don't change anything. This is the first time Seattle will have continuity of 5 returning starters, probably in over a decade. He couldn't even remember the last time they brought back the same 5 starting linemen to start training camp the next year as starters as a group. And he also made the point of putting
Mookie
out.
Know? Maybe Mookie knows.
Maybe Mookie does know. Well, Mookie, hold a second.
Wait. You're typing. No, don't be typing. I see you typing. Just, do you know?
Yeah.
I think because John Gilbert, I'm pretty sure, did this already on field goals.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Not even close. Like, not one time have they been able to bring back the same 5 guys the following year under Schneider. Part of that is injuries, but part of that is guys were just straight not good enough to justify. Like, would you bring Luke Jokel back for 2018? Absolutely.
But it was also interesting just listening to the other key things. I asked him off of that. I said, so what really has made Seattle's run game all of a sudden click? Because it was kind of clunky in that first part. Is it just the fact that they, figured it out? And he goes, yeah, probably some, comfortability there. Sundell coming back from his injury helped with that. But he goes, the 2 biggest things, Seattle's tight ends are so key in their run game and their blocking assignments and winning at the point of attack and sealing off backside flow coming across. And the other thing he mentioned too, and he mentioned this player by name, he goes, the receiving core blocks so well. He mentioned Bobo, he mentioned Cup, but he said the guy that's impressed him most lately is JSN, saying that JSN has improved so much as a run blocker that it's actually allowed Seattle's offensive running attack to get going because he's gotten better as a run blocker. And so those are kind of some cool tidbits I got from Brian Baldinger today.
I'm glad you brought up JSN. Kind of an important part of what we've seen happen this year. He's in his 3rd year, entering his 4th. We'll see if they try to extend him this offseason in lieu of giving him the 5th round or the 5th year option. There is some indication that maybe they'll stray from their sort of tried and true approach and try to extend him this offseason. Let me start with you, Mookie, and then I want to hear your thoughts on this too, Brandon. Where does he, after just 3 years, where is he in the all-time echelon of great Seahawks wide receivers? Can you make an argument now, after 3 years, that he's the best?
Best meaning like better than Largent? I think we're going to need another couple years.
Yeah, obviously numbers aren't going to stack up. Actually, numbers aren't going to stack up, right? Of course, JSN's not going to have 100 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons. Physically, talent-wise, ability, is he the best receiver the Seahawks have ever had?
He is, and I've said this before on previous shows, he's the best of Lockett and the best of Baldwin rolled into one. The route running, the speed is better than the whatever 40 time he had. I think he was still dealing with the hamstring, whatever time he ran it his pro day. His route running, his hands are excellent. His ability to make people miss in the open field. I mean, just the subtle movements, the footwork. So one thing I noticed in the Rams game is how often they were doing those quick outs to JSN and just motioning him out the backfield and then having Cup as a blocker, or just a straight quick throw, go make a man miss one-on-one. And he can do that. And that to me was what made Doug Baldwin so special, is he could do exactly those things. Lockett was a consistently great receiver from like 2018 onward and until maybe 2023-ish. And then Doug Baldwin, it's just a shame that the injuries robbed us of a few more years of him. It's possible we never see DK Metcalf, but I'll tell you this much. JSN in 3 years has surpassed Metcalf, and Metcalf was very productive here. He had a lot of good moments, but we see the inconsistencies, and Pittsburgh knows all too well about those inconsistencies. JSN is going to go down, I think, as an all-time Seahawks great, and it is crazy to think about it with all the offensive talent the Seahawks have had through the decades, but Largent is still the only tried and true Seahawk, sorry, Jerry Rice, to make the Hall of Fame, the wide receiver list. JSN looks like he's got a Canton trajectory ahead of him because he's just a total package. Route running, hands, ability to win downfield, which was not a thing he did a lot at Ohio State, maybe because Olave and Wilson were doing that more. He can attack. You can get him at all 3 levels. He can be a help in the run game, as you said, with his blocking. It's so much better than last year. To think, we're on the assumption he's going to get better. And if he doesn't get better, he's at worst the second best receiver in the league. He really is a special talent, and he's everything that I've wanted out of a Seahawks receiver over the last few years. And tell you what, this is one of the benefits of that Russell Wilson trade. Like, what happened if you have only 1 first-round pick? Like, do you still end up taking JSN at 20? Like, I mean, what do you do with 20 versus having 5 and 20 to take Spoon and JSN? But yes, Smith and Jigba is the man, and he's already, to me, one of the best receivers the Seahawks have ever had.
tell you one thing before I get to you, Brandon, because I heard you go, what'd you say? Like, hold on. I mean, like, I'm a Largent guy, right? Like, no disrespect. But one thing Mookie just reminded me of that I think is really, really cool is when you talk about the three best in Seahawks history, right? And it's JSN, Doug Baldwin, Steve Largent. As good of dudes as they are players, I think that's one common thread between the three of them that's really cool. I can't remember who it was. Maybe one of you guys can remind me. Yesterday, I read some analysis from a former player who said the thing that impresses him the most about JSN and how he runs his routes is how he uses his arms, right? That he doesn't move his arms. He always keeps them in close to his body, so he never gives anything away. He never gives a tell. Brandon, just sum up his performance this year and what it meant to this offense, because this was an offense that wasn't a sure thing, certainly in the offseason. 6 brand new starters, including the quarterback. That's always a difficult transition to make, including a new wide receiver one with JSN taking DK's place, a whole new coaching staff. We didn't expect an 1,800-yard reception year and a potential offensive player of the year performance out of JSN.
You're in the midst of watching what we should be calling the greatest season for a wide receiver in NFL history. Because when you look at statistically the receivers that are there around where he's at as far as receiving wise, like a Calvin Johnson, it came on the back of playing on a bad team. It came on the back of having Stat Padford at the height of his powers in the Padfordness.
And I've never heard that.
And I got Mookie out. I've never heard that. And so I think you got a lot of guys that if we look through that list of the top 5 receiving yards list, you'd see a lot of guys that have quarterbacks in a similar kind of place where they've all done it on the back of having a high volume approach thrown their way. With JSN, he's done it with a quarterback that's not on just not top 5 attempts, not top 10 attempts, not top 15 attempts, not top 20. You're like top 20, 5 in attempts on the year from the quarterback position. And yet he's carved that out and got that done while being that target share of the audience, target share of the offense, while having, look, Sheed's really good and Horton was really good for us for a while and Cooper Kupp's been solid. But these guys aren't having like a second option over there where it's like, well, you just can't double team that guy because you got this guy over here. Well, I mean, teams have been willing to, so you can't just purely say it's not them willing to do that. So, pecking order wise, where he's at, I think the assessments of where Mookie at on him, I think that's pretty fair on it. And he's really surprised me on the getting the deep and the yak stuff. I mean, none of those two things were really on center display coming out of Ohio State. And losing that guy in the bubble screen, running up on him in space, not even having a guy get the hand on him, that's something I didn't know that he had coming out.
Did you come up with that?
No, that is not mine.
I've never heard that before. That is fantastic. But it's a great point. Seahawks led the NFL in point differential. Played from ahead. I think by the time the end of the season, I'd kind of seen that this metric throughout the season. I think more minutes playing from ahead than any team in the league. New England might have been up there as well, but a much different strength to set. And there's fourth quarters where they didn't need to throw it to them anymore. We're running the football for 160 yards a game. We're running it at a rate higher than anyone in the league. And on top of all that, oh, by the way, teams were trying to take him away. Like you put all that context
and the toughest
together,
division in football.
Great. Yeah, yep.
And the toughest division in football in the last 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. Really, really spectacular. Should we talk about the defense? I do want to say this, and this might be kind of a segue to go from offense to defense. And I want to make sure I'm not 100% sure. I was just scrolling through Twitter today. We had a lot going on, and I saw this thing. I want to say it came from Seattle Sports 710, and I always want to give credit. I think it might have been an appearance by Brian Nemhauser on 710, where he made a point that I thought was brilliant. That he said Sunday's game might have gone down the exact way and the best way that it could have to finally get the monkey off Sam Darnold's back, because you didn't have the excuses that some people can make from the week before in the divisional round where he played really well and he made big time throw after big time throw, but the numbers at the end of the game looked very pedestrian. This was a game that everybody could see. Top 10 quarterback performance in playoff history. Historically, where the defense didn't play great. Mike McDonald expressed his frustration afterwards, talked about how, hey, Sean McVay threw some stuff at us we weren't prepared for, we had a hard time adjusting to. the defense wasn't up to their elite self. Sam had to be that good to win this game, wasn't it? Isn't that a great point? It was kind of the perfect way for this to go down.
Yeah, it was. It allowed Sam to finally, I think, in a way, because the defense wasn't there as a crutch, per se. Like, you couldn't go, hey, I can sit back. I don't have to do – like, Sam had to go out and do his thing and prove that he could do his thing against a team that had constantly proven that they had his quote-unquote number. And everyone thought he was going to see ghosts of. But the one thing I will give the defense credit for, when the biggest moment came up, in the two of them, one being the fourth down call in the red zone, one of your best players stood up and made a phenomenal play in man coverage in Witherspoon, which even Mike McDonald alluded they didn't play that call perfectly right as they should have. And then on top of that, the last two plays of the game, you give up, but then you get the tackle inbounds on Nakua and end their season. When your defense needed to step up and make a play, it did. It just wasn't the normal dominating performance we were used to. Because, again, you're going up, I think, the equivalent of offense in Sean McVay. Like, when there's the conversation about Shanahan and McVay's pure drop-back scheme, in my opinion, sets him ahead of Shanahan's offense because of what we saw. Again, he's able to get Nakua open. He's able to get Devontae Adams open. And, yes, they're good talent, but he does it better than Shanahan does. I think, truly, Mike McDonald is in Shanahan's head and giving him nightmares all offseason. I think Mike is now, in a way, at some points creeping into McVay's, because I think that defense in Seattle and how vaunted they are and how much of a nightmare unit they are, I think it makes McVay press a bit in situations when he doesn't necessarily need to.
I think it's a great point, and this is probably not a point that we need to belabor. I don't want to get into a long conversation about the Rams or Sean McVay. But I think we talked a couple of weeks ago on the show about how it just felt like McVay's always been wound tight. He's always been an intense dude. It felt like since week 11, really, he pushed that team harder than he ever has, and he was pushing harder. Like, I'd never seen the kind of sideline shots that we've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks of him just coaching as if it was do or die. And then in his comments after the game, kind of felt like Seahawks are in his head, a little bit of a nemesis there. I do think the difference between McVay and Shanahan, I go to McDonald's comments on this one, is McVay will revolutionize and evolve his offense every single week and throw something at you on a short week of prep that the best defensive coordinator in the league is not prepared for. Shanahan doesn't do that kind of stuff. He just kind of doubles down into his scheme and tries to find answers within it and try to break the rules of the defense. I would like to talk about a certain individual on defense on Sunday. Are we sitting here talking about a Super Bowl right now? Mookie, I'll start with you. If they don't trade up to take Nichemanori in the second round, his performance, his contributions second half of the season?
He was, by a country mile, the best performer on defense. Probably for both teams, but definitely for the Seahawks. The pivotal sequence was right before halftime. Second down, breaks up a pass, or I believe it was Nakua. And then third down, breaks up another pass to Ronnie Rivers. And, the big thing there is, okay, let's say the third down pass is caught and he tackles him short of the sticks. Seattle's either got to use a timeout, and at the very least, McDonald's got a decision to make. Either the clock runs or McDonald's got to use a timeout. Instead, 2 free clock stoppages, and Seattle's able to score in 34 seconds and have all of their timeouts available. And it's because of how good Nichemanori was, especially in coverage. Kind of the knock on him was in college was, oh man, he's a physical freak, but does he really play physical football? Well, even if the tape wasn't always showing like Nichemanori as this physical menace, he certainly became one under Mike McDonald. Like the traits have been realized, the potential has been realized so quickly. And on the third down before the Witherspoon stop, just watch him deal with, I believe it was Colby Parkinson in the middle of the end zone. And just the airtight coverage he was providing. And then Julian Love came over to shade there. And one of Nichemanori's weaknesses has been covering the tight end, and he was perfect there. We didn't really see much of Nichemanori as a pass rusher. They hardly, even when they blitzed or when they when they did sim pressures, Nichemanori wasn't involved a whole lot. And it was kind of like conservative blitzing, if you will. But Nick was fantastic. And this is the Metcalf trade, right? Like Seattle trades Metcalf for a second-round pick. They get an extra second. That's how they're able to package up to get from wherever they were supposed to pick to 35. And look, the only reason why Nichemanori is probably not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year is because he missed too many games. Like he missed 4.5 games in effect. But he's, to me, a quick learner, and his instincts look to be improving. And what he's provided in terms of the physical nature, like with his almost perfect form tackling, his ball skills, everything raises the ceiling of this defense. He is that. He's kind of what we wanted Jamal Adams to be, I guess. And shout out to Jamal for supporting the Seahawks even after all the the contentious exit. But like Nichemanori has been everything I would have hoped for and more. And like I said for Gray's Abel, if he isn't one iota better for the rest of his career, this guy's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. I mean, he is that good.
Brandon, I wanted to ask you about the other corner who sometimes plays nickel and plays outside. I can see it in the comments as soon as we start talking about the secondary. A lot of fans want to crap on Devin Witherspoon for his performance on Sunday. I maintain, I think the first 3 plays that he was a big part of that people want to point to, the first one was a contested catch from Nakua, which I thought he was in perfect position for. He was ripping at his arm. It was just a great catch. It was what Nakua does best. He just physically beat him and caught that ball. The other 2, he lost his footing, right? And there's some comments in the stream about maybe getting new cleats. But when they needed him most, he came up big. And we were talking about this today while we were sitting out at the Senior Bowl. The conversation about the Seahawks defense is still, and rightly so, and for good reason, the interchangeability of Witherspoon and Nichemanori and the power of that and what a weapon that is to be able to use both those guys in there. And most teams don't have one nickel that can be that physical and allow you to do the things that they do with light boxes. Seahawks have 2. But his play on the outside, which he did a lot more of this year, and they counted on, he basically was an outside corner who sometimes shifted inside. I don't think it got enough attention and enough credit. Your thoughts on Devin Witherspoon for the first time since we've seen him really primarily being an outside guy?
Yeah, I think that he's found his home on the outside. He can be a very good nickel guy, and that's a good spot for him, but it's a great spot for him on the outside. And it's frustrating in a game for me like this because you have the chess matchup play between McDonald and McVay, and you have the first matchup in certain ways they attack, and the second matchup in different ways they attack. Like the first matchup, it was a little bit more of, we'll blitz a little bit more. We're going to attack the play action. We're going to play a little more kind of zone-ish. Second matchup, you go, let's go heavier zone, maybe blitz even a little bit less. Then you're like, well, they slayed the zone, so let's come back with man-press looks and run that. We've been having some luck with that, and you do so with Witherspoon, and I start licking my chops. Like I'm putting the napkin in my shirt going, yeah, this is what he does. And now we're not going to let Puka just run through the zones. Bryce is going to have to tell me that technique where Puka tucks himself into the shoulder, into the armpit of the defender, and then presses off into, it's not even a cut, just sort of just gets into the armpit and then just sort of steers off of it. He did it to Reek Woolen in the game too. I know he's done it before, just kind of this game really I was like, whoa, he's doing that. That's like a little move thing he's doing. It was just a wild thing where sometimes great players make great plays. Sometimes weird things happen. I thought the Josh Jobe getting lost on Colby Parkinson, where Colby Parkinson outrun Josh Jobe in man press. Like, dude, not man press. He was an off man there, or a man match situation. But still, that's like, dude, run with him. That's what I want. This is what I want you in. You should be able to be on top of Colby there. So look, the frustration on the front end is okay, but it's also like, that's not Devin. It's not who he's been, to your point on this, throughout the course of this year. He's been sensational on the outside, and then he comes back and it's those 2 plays at the end of the game with the game on the line. The second one being there on the tight end on Ferguson, where you see Matt Stafford going through his reads, and he comes back to that read. As soon as his head swings over, there looks like there's separation there. So it's that he didn't mean for that to happen, but he undercut that separation to put himself in a position to make sure there was no chance for Ferguson to get that ball. That is a phenomenal play. And he's a phenomenal player. And both, yes, him and JSN are going to get a contract extension this offseason. It is not, well, maybe, yes, 159,000%. They're both going to end up with an extension this offseason.
As they should. Let's talk about the other corner. Reek Woolen has been a roller coaster this year. We have seen every single kind of realm of what his skill set is and how he can perform. And we saw it all on Sunday. We saw really good plays And then we saw the taunting call, and we can argue about whether it was the appropriate call and how the NFL administers that. The fact is that even he admitted afterwards that he kind of lost his head in that moment. Where do we stand on Reek? I'll start with you, Bryce. Like, I think just kind of thinking back over syndicate episodes, I think at some point this season we all felt like at some point, no, you don't bring him back. He's going to be too expensive, and he's not worth it. Yes, it looks like he fits. Mike McDonald loves to rave about him, came to his defense again after the game. Where do you stand on Reek Woolen after this game?
I think Reek Woolen's going to have an interesting offseason is how I'll put it, because I think he's going to get offered a deal from Seattle, and he's going to have to make a decision if he wants it, because it will not be what the market is going to be out there. I think he's going to go out and get top dollar on the open market. And I think in Seattle, they're in a position where, like to Brandon's point, they are going to pay Devin Witherspoon. You have a capable number 2-3 corner and number 2 in a pinch in Josh Jobe. There's some guys in this cornerback class that look like they could play and start opposite. And you got to make some decisions. Now, if Reek wants to come back at a reduced deal, then I think there's a conversation to be had. But I don't know if Seattle goes and breaks the bank for Reek Woolen. And the reason I say that is, as much as Reek has improved, there are still moments where Reek has, kind of like we talk about Anthony Bradford, you kind of see the whole arc of Reek Woolen in a game, and you saw it in this game. He has a bonehead penalty. Then he comes up and gives up a deep ball down the field to Puka Nacua, like the following play. And then you see him through at points through the back half of that. After that, sticky in coverage again, coming up in the run game. And it was like the full Reek Woolen experience of his career in a one-game sample. And I don't know if Seattle wants that volatility consistently, something they have to deal with game in and game out with Reek, or for spurts of games, right? Like he could be in the tank for 3 or 4 games, and then all of a sudden, as we saw this year, something happens in the back half of the season, he's a lot better. So I think it's going to be a wait-and-see approach with Reek and what his market is. I don't think you'll see Seattle running to him going, here's all the money in the world. We want you to be our corner here, when they know they've got a guy that's more consistent in Spoon that they need to pay.
Mookie, if I told you it was somewhere in the range of the J.C. Horn contract, 25-ish average annual value. Let's say Seahawks like to do 3-year deals. Let's say it's $375, whatever you want to make the guaranteed money. Like, are you doing that?
Well, I know Brandon's answer because I just saw his eyes light up like he's just seen Satan himself. If it's
He's still doing it.
If it's the J.C. Horn deal, then happy trails, Reek, because like if you're not a regular starting corner getting 100% of the snaps, then that is functionally an overpay. Now, I'm of the opinion that Reek is still very important to this defense on a couple of things. One, at his best, certainly not on that Nacua touchdown, him getting beat on so easily there. He is normally an airtight corner, especially in whether in man or zone, but especially in man. But also the size, because you take away Reek, and this is a pretty undersized cornerback room. And at some points, Seattle was getting beaten down the field because dude too tiny, to use a very technical term, like for Josh Jobe not being able to match with Parkinson there. I think that's a play that Reek could make just by being 6'3" or 6'4". He can afford to be out of position and make a play, much in the way Sherman could back in the day. Yeah. But I feel like Woolen is going to have a big market value just because you don't normally see a lot of high-level corners like hit the market. So there will be a decision to make. And let's say Reek walks. I don't think it's inconceivable that McDonald would consider playing Nichemanori at boundary corner at times. I mean, he's got the frame to be a really good cornerback. I'm not saying make him full-time, but like have him get some, like take some of the Reek snaps. Like if you're going to increase Jobe snaps and keep him in free agency, fine. But like if Nichemanori is that versatile, I think he could actually pan out as a boundary corner, like part-time, in addition to everything he does as just your standard nickel guy in the slot or like a pseudo linebacker. So that's something that we can focus on down the line. But Reek, I hate the taunting penalties being a thing, not like Reek's taunting penalties, but the principle of the NFL and how they adjudicate these things. But you got to play within the rules. And in this instance, like, just let it go. I think you all remember when Spoon was about to suplex somebody on the sideline a few weeks back, and he said, stop. He like the self-preservation, the self-awareness. Like, Reek just needs a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and Brandon, I want to ask you this then to follow up on that. It's, the length is appreciated, Mookie, but we were talking about this today. Like, you think back to the 2 years that Mike McDonald was the DC with the Baltimore Ravens. Who was his number one corner? It's Marlon Humphrey. What's Marlon Humphrey? 5'10". He's spoon size, basically, right? 5'10", 5'11". Brandon, you used a word a few weeks ago that stuck with me ever since, and we just spent the first day out at the Senior Bowl. And a lot of the guys that we want to see aren't here. But as much as people want to diss this overall draft class, there are a couple of position groups that are pretty solid and line up with where the Seahawks are going to be drafting in each round, kind of with where it looks like it's going to fall. One of them is the cornerback group. You called this group tasty. There's some solid players in this class.
There is, and I think they're what we call plug and play. It's the sizzle this class is maybe missing, but it does have some solid floors out there, and especially if you're a team that's looking for a plug and play replacement for a guy leaving in free agency, that could really fit. So I think that there's some answers to be had out here, and I think the decision on this one's going to come from about 5-6 decision points. I think that the DJ Reed and the Shaquille Griffin situations do give us an indicator about John running into this in general from his perspective. You made some good points about McDonald's history with corners. And yeah, with Humphrey, they did pay him. They technically drafted him. They drafted him before Mike McDonald got there. So he's not a guy that's necessarily hyper concentrated on corners as far as that's what I need for my defense. The load balance aspect of this, we can't pay everybody. We're going to come out of the Super Bowl and everybody's going to want to pay everybody. You're going to get this from your fans. You're going to see me in your chat. You're like, well, we got to get this guy. You can't get everyone. You're going to have to make some tough decisions somewhere. And that's where when I pair that back to the DJ Reed, to the Shaquille Griffin situation, I go, that's probably the way this one plays out. I'll ultimately trust in the coaching staff if they think the light's gone on with Reek and it's true and it's real and that he's got something that's really clicked into place. Because here's the thing. I don't hold the taunting stuff really up as in regards as much. I'm going to much more hold them account for a lack of tackling at times in the past when that's come up. This thing last week, I don't care. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was ridiculous. This is the conference championship between two rivals. Everyone's out there yapping. What is the point of that? It's just dumb. So I don't have as much an issue there, and I think he played overall a pretty decent game outside of the Devontae Adams touchdown he gave up. But you can't pay him $15 million. And say nothing to that Horn deal, you're probably at the very least in that area of things with him. And I think that's where it just becomes a little bit too much.
Yeah, and they have options. I almost kind of wonder if this is sort of similar to the Greg Zabel situation last year, where like they surveyed the free agent market. They decided there was really only one guy they felt comfortable offering money to. That was Will Fries. They did. They didn't end up getting him. And from that point on, like they were focused on the draft. That's where they were going to turn to find that plug and play starter. We watched a kid today in the first session this morning in freaking 30-degree weather, Colton Hood out of Tennessee, who, early on in the practice, you said to me, he kind of looks like a Mike McDonald corner. And then we saw a rep, and it was actually a rep where he gave up a 30-yard completion. But it's the kind of rep that you mark off on your grading sheet, like as a positive rep for Colton Hood. Like perfect press off the line, mirrored the wide receiver, ran with him in his hip pocket, knew exactly the moment to turn his head and be in a position to make the play and not get called for PI if there's contact. Reached up, ripped for the ball, and the ball just missed his hand. It was a great catch by the receiver, but it was absolutely picture-perfect rep from him. And there's some other guys here that we like too. But it's just a interesting kind of thing. And I know how fans think. I know how fans think, right? They think of that one rep they saw from a guy a year ago or whatever that he got beat. They think of the Rams overtime game, I think, last year. They think about the Tampa Bay game when he had a moment. Seattle Seahawks really like Nehemiah Pritchett. That is not just lip service. They really like him, and he might be part of the solution too. Go ahead.
I think, too, with Colton, he's good, but the problem with him is that he's got the year he's missed. If his medicals are clean and then he tests well, he's going to be a first-round pick and maybe the first corner off the board in the draft.
Ooh. That's interesting because I do see him a lot at the end of the first round in mocks, but, how reliable are those for 4 months out for sure?
And that's them digging him on the lack of production this year, and then they don't have the testing. He goes out there and runs a 4.4, and he lights it up here at Senior Bowl, and the medical's clean. If that's also, we don't know for sure, but that to me, in a draft with the other two corners I've got in the first round, he probably would have him beat out. I don't know. It'll be interesting, but we're going to win at 32. I don't know if he lasts to that.
There's some other guys that we really didn't get our eyes on today that we want to look at a little closer tomorrow. Chris Johnson from San Diego State is one. Julian Neal from Arkansas is another guy that's kind of a long corner and plays the run really well. That'll be interesting to watch.
Johnson's nice.
Yeah. Are we concerned about the lack of pass rush and pressure against Matt Stafford at all? Is this a sign of maybe some sort of concern 2 weeks from now, or is this a Rams problem? Because in 3 meetings this year, we were only able to get him to the ground once and hit him 8 times. Is it just a Rams thing?
He gets the ball. Sorry, go ahead, Mookie.
It's Seattle does not have an elite edge rusher thing. And so I know I caught some flack for that, but like it's true. They have a lot of good players, but nobody great. Nobody on this edge rushing group is, I think, as good as Chris Clements, for example, and certainly not Cliff Averill. So I mean, Hall and Mafe were ghosts. Sorry to use the Sam Darnold term, but they were pretty much ghosts in this game. Nwosu got some pressures. Lawrence was able to at least get a sack and affect the quarterback a couple of times. But I mean, I'm not worried for the rest of this season because they don't get to play the Rams offensive line anymore. They get to play Will Campbell and what's the dudes at left guard, Jared Wilson. They get to play a much worse offensive line.
Campbell.
Campbell. Yes. They get to play a much worse offensive line in the Super Bowl, and those are more favorable matchups. But in the long term, edge rush is pretty much a requirement because there's no chance you justify keeping Mafe here. Hall's going to be in a contract year. You don't know if DeMarcus Lawrence wants to run it back another year, say he might retire after winning a Super Bowl, say call it a career, but like you're going to have to change some things as far as I'm concerned.
You'll have to do comments because I can't appreciate it. Yeah. All right, you guys. Should we talk about this game coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's a game. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Do we buy into the narrative that this is the absolute perfect redemption path, that nobody could have scripted this better, right? You get a second chance against the Niners to get that monkey off your back. You beat them in the playoffs. You beat the Rams. You slay that dragon at home in the NFC Championship game. Now, of all the potential opponents that we could have faced in the Super Bowl, different coaches, different everything except for the owner, pretty much. We get that. But a chance for the ultimate redemption in a way, at least as much as they can achieve, facing the Patriots again after what happened in Super Bowl 49. Is that what you were hoping for?
I'm hoping just we don't put ourselves in a situation like we did in Super Bowl 49. That's what I'm hoping for. And if we get ourselves in that situation again, we don't call a slant play when the other team's bracketing our 2 receivers when they're stacked
Let
up.
me ask you this. Let's get really specific. Knowing what you know about Clint Kubiak, in that exact same situation, 22 seconds left, 1 timeout, second down. It was second down, right? Second goal from the – what does Kubiak do there? If he comes out, he calls a play in the huddle. Presumably there were 2 options. You come up to the line of scrimmage. They're in goal line. There's 9 guys on the line of scrimmage. What does Clint Kubiak do in that situation?
Spider Y2 banana.
I'm legit scared because he did it 3 weeks ago against the Niners.
That's exactly why I said it.
No, that wasn't Spider. That was
Widow.
Widow.
Y2 banana.
Because it wasn't to the fullback.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that play. I'm saying they did a couple weeks. They did that play.
Oh, yeah.
They did that play.
The first drive against the 49ers. Yeah. Okay.
The 4th down play, the pick play is what I'm talking about.
That's why we have it.
That's what we got. No, you said he might run it. Is my point. He might run the Super Bowl play, dude, because he just did 3 weeks ago.
I thought you were talking about the first down play where you're on the 1 yard line, you're gashing them in the run game, and you decide not to run it there.
Yeah. No, not that. The three plays later, you're running a pick play, which is what we got intercepted on the Patriot play, right?
Yeah.
That's the pay. That was the play you were running, was a literal pick that caused it. So, well.
Mookie, I always get nervous when it comes to the sport of football when the consensus narrative leans one way. I always do, because the NFL is a very humbling league, and it's a league that can throw curveballs at you at any given moment, on any given Sunday, as it were. The fact that it seems to me, at least 48 hours after the NFC Championship game is over, that everyone is talking about this as if this is a given for the Seahawks. Does that make you nervous at all? Are you worried about the Patriots in any way?
I'm nervous that everybody's discovered the Seahawks are good, but I don't expect it to get in the heads of the Seahawks players. As far as New England, they are a team worth respecting. Just because their schedule's been a farce doesn't mean that they're not capable of beating top teams. It's just that they haven't had a chance to play them. Houston, to me, is a top team. They just had a horrible offensive performance. And they were able to find some successful plays against an elite defense. Denver is very much an unfortunate situation because Nick's got hurt. Maybe they're not here if Nick's plays. Certainly, if Denver had somehow won that game, the Seahawks would be 2 touchdown favorites over Denver because Stidham would just be an all-time disaster against this defense. But, yeah, I mean, the Patriots have got an improving defense. They've got some pieces. They don't really have a lot of elite players. They don't have a lot of high-end blue-chip talent. Christian Gonzalez certainly is on the defensive side of the ball. And then on offense, Drake May looks like he could be that next big thing for New England, a long-suffering franchise looking for that Tom Brady replacement. It's been so long since they've had a quarterback that good, and now suddenly Drake May falls into their lap. They've got some good running backs, Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, but on paper, this favors Seattle. But it's a neutral site game. The Patriots will have just as much time to prepare as against the Seahawks as vice versa. So Seattle's got to respect New England as a team that is getting better. They're on the rise. Are they benefiting from an easy schedule? Sure. But they look like a good team, a very good team that's worthy of being here. So, yeah, I'm always going to be nervous, but I think that this is going to be a good one.
And we'll talk a lot more, obviously, about this matchup as we get into next week and even later this week when Brandon joins us here. Friday is a day that there's no practice at the Senior Bowl, so we can kind of look ahead on that day. There is an elephant in the room, though, that needs to be discussed today, and the folks in the comments have been patiently waiting for us to address the situation with Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks, who interviewed for 6 of the 10 NFL openings. It seems like, well, it doesn't seem like, it is Raiders or bust. It is down to the Raiders. It all seems like Mike LaFleur is going to be the guy in Arizona. All the other jobs seem to be pretty set. The Kubiak thing is hard to put a finger on, though, trying to connect dots and reading what's happening out there. And today we did have some dominoes fall. Brian Daboll agreed contractually to be the offensive coordinator with the Titans. Now, that wouldn't preclude him, if the Raiders would offer him the job, from taking the job, just as it wouldn't preclude Mike McDaniel from still taking the job if they offered it to him. But it doesn't sound like, from all the reporting that's out there, that either of those guys will be offered the job. It sounds like it's down to Davis Webb or Clint Kubiak. I had a chance to talk to Albert Breer today, and I asked him what he thought, and he had some really cool things to say. He said, first of all, the first thing that he said was Clint Kubiak's trying to decide if he thinks it's a good job to take. He's trying to decide within himself if he even wants to continue pursuing it or if it would behoove him to stay in Seattle, maybe get an opportunity to go back-to-back, and then maybe do the Ben Johnson thing. And there's some other openings next year, because there is some reporting over the last 48 hours that candidates that have interviewed for the Raiders job have walked away from those interviews wondering who's running this organization in that building. And that's a very, very difficult thing if you're potentially going to be a head coach and tie yourself to that organization for a while, especially when you look at the last 20 years of their head coaching history. So there was that. And then he said, I think Daboll's out, and this is an hour before news broke that he took the job with the Titans. He said, I think it's down to Webb or Kubiak. And I said, it's interesting to me that he hasn't scheduled a second interview yet. If that was happening, I'd be a little more nervous. And he said, don't read anything into that. They've been talking throughout this entire process. Bryce, where do you sit today on your nervousness level? Or I guess just how likely is it at this point, based on everything you know and that's being reported, that you think Clint Kubiak gets the Raiders job?
I think it really comes down to if Clint Kubiak wants the job. And I think plan B for the Raiders right now is Davis Webb. And I think that's why you saw what happened with Joe Lombardi in Denver, with him getting removed as offensive coordinator, that Sean Payton is trying to entice Davis Webb to maybe pull himself out like Udinski pulled himself out of some of those coaching opportunities. And I think this is really going to come down to if Kubiak really wants that job. And if he wants that job to take Mendoza and try and rebuild it. But if he decides that he doesn't, I think you see the immediate pivot to Davis Webb. But I think really this is now just sitting in Kubiak's court on if he wants to be a head coach, and that's going to be with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Mookie, where are you at with this?
I think that we'll see how the game goes, meaning the Super Bowl, and that could influence whether or not Kubiak decides I've gone as far as I can. I want to, or Seattle wins the Super Bowl and go, wow, I've got a ring, offensive coordinator. Now it's time to see what I can do with it as a head coach. I just think that it's such a terribly unattractive job. Like, okay, you're probably going to get Fernando Mendoza as a number 1 overall pick, and you've got Ashton Jeanty. There's talent on the offensive side of the ball. Don't get me wrong. but it's more or less down to like 4 players. So like there's still too many things that the Raiders need to do to be good. This is going to be a multi-year rebuild realistically for them. And I don't know if it's a job worth taking given the historical impatience of Mark Davis and how many coaches he's still paying. He's obviously paying Pete. I think he's still paying McDaniels. Hell, he's probably still paying Gruden. So they're like at 4 or 5.
He is still playing Gruden.
Yeah. So I actually think Kubiak stays. I think he's going to remain Seahawks offensive coordinator. And if there's a better job out there next offseason, then he might take that leap and become a head coach. But when the options are now just Cleveland, Arizona, and the Raiders, and Cleveland is clearly not interested, they've not interviewed him, and they can't interview him during this bye week. They might promote Jim Schwartz. It leads you to Arizona and the Raiders. You don't know who your quarterback is in Arizona next year, and that's another team that's just in total disarray. So these are 2 unattractive jobs that's you're down to, and it looks like it's just going to be the Raiders or bust based on what you heard. I think he's going to stay in Seattle. I think that Kubiak is going to be here one more year, whether the Seahawks win the Super Bowl or not, because, again, this Raiders job is not attractive. Having a rookie quarterback in itself does not mean I'm sold. It normally means I've got some work to do.
And Brandon, I want to ask it to you in a different way, but imagine the irony if Kubiak were to get that job. It would, in a way, all be tied to the fact that the Raiders decided to hire Pete Carroll last year when the rest of us thought he was done in the NFL. What makes you more – what gives you more pause for concern? The fact that we might lose Kubiak on its face, or the fact that if he does get the Raiders job, all or most of the other good offensive coordinator candidates that they might pivot to have been hired at this point and have taken other jobs?
Yeah, that'd be probably the biggest concern for me is just where's the replacement this late in the hour coming from? And the hope that he takes into account is just not a good situation. And these decisions tend to be automatic, man. But yeah, it's gotten very late, and there's not a lot of great names out there left on there. Even guys like Mike McCarthy, we'd been talking about it, a week ago, are now off the board.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like you're really looking, going, and so I'm a little worried, man. But I just keep coming back to thinking about going that situation. All the coaches they fired, like Mookie just talked about, all of the upheaval there, who's in charge. You could go in there and have a move that we've seen like in basketball sometimes here, where you go in and you get hired this year, and then next year they let out Spytek, and then they got to clear out him too, because whatever general manager you bring in, you got to give him the opportunity to hire his next new coach. And Tom Brady leads a rebellion and bop, right? Like you'd feel that story coming a mile away. So I wouldn't if I was him, but this decision doesn't tend to come down to these matters, at least in NFL historically speaking goes.
Yeah, you can make an argument it's the worst roster in the NFL, really.
You could.
Now, if it happens, given
worst,
what you just
worst number 1 overall pick since Tim Couch, from a talent standpoint.
If it should happen, if it should go down, we were talking about this today. With all those guys off the board, it's probably an in-house answer. And for the first time, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, for the first time in a long time, they actually have some multiple viable candidates on the staff. And I know how you used to think when it came to this. You used to be a Jake Peets guy, but you've changed on this one, haven't you?
I have a little bit. I think Peets could be the guy, but again, he got turned down for another OC job in Detroit.
They didn't interview him last year when the job was open.
I got a feeling that Justin Outen would be the guy that they would tag, just because of what Mike wants. He wants the run game. He wants those things. Outen has clearly made an improvement in that group since Coach Polamalu is no longer there and been released of his contract and all that transpired. I could see a situation where they lean to Justin Outen, and maybe it's a situation where Justin Outen's the OC. He calls all the run game stuff, and you got Jake Peets building into, calling the pass game coordinator. Yeah.
Hey, should we take some questions and comments before we wrap up today? Yeah.
All right, let's go into this. And we've got a new member that joined up over there, I believe, on the Hawks.
So is it Hawks Punk? Is it Hawks Punk or is it Hawk Spunk?
I hope it's not the latter, because
I'm going to go with the former on that one, Dan.
All right, here's another one. We've got Peter Go Hawks. Bryce is sending some game day picks on Twitter. We're going to go to the Super Bowl, baby.
Nice.
How lucky are we to have this team right now? Go Hawks. Hashtag blessed for a $5 donation.
Good to see you,
Thank you,
Peter.
Peter. And Peter, I can't seem to find them, so make sure you DM them to me at the Seahawks Eye, and I'll be able to respond to those. But looking forward to seeing them, my friend.
Thank you, Peter.
We've got from Brandon's side another $5 donation from Randy.
What's up, Randy?
Thank you, Randall.
Asking the whole crew about Randy's hottest take, Sam's performance Sunday. With everything factored in, was this the greatest performance ever by a Seahawk?
Even with as much historical knowledge I have within the Seahawks history, the Seahawks franchise, I don't think I can immediately answer that. It's certainly, to me, one of the best quarterback performances ever by a Seahawks.
I think it is the best quarterback performance, to be
isolated
honest,
quarterback
statistically
only.
speaking, in a playoff game.
Most important quarterback performance. I don't know about best. I'd have to dig into that. The best overall performance, because Randy didn't specify quarterback. The first thing that popped into my head was the Sunday night game against the Vikings. I want to say the Sean Alexander hit 4 touchdowns in the first half. Remember that one? The game was over by halftime. Yeah, 5 touchdowns in the first half. Yeah, that was about as dominant as I've ever seen. But for quarterbacks only, I'd have to dig on that a little bit.
I'm going to pass it over to you, Dan. I'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of a better one. I've been trying to think of one, Randall, but I think that's his, it's hard. You got to go through so many years to try to kind of pair, but definitely, I think you can make a great argument about it being the best quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I'll say this. I think it was maybe the most satisfying quarterback performance I've ever seen in Seahawks history. Like just everything. Yeah, everything on his plate and everything he was up against. And I think we're all on the same page. I don't think any of us have wavered in how we believe about this. But going back to the week that we all spent in training camp, and I got to watch the whole month of August, I felt it then. And I know we had conversations about it. What I saw day in and day out every single day at training camp was a special quarterback. Just the way, and even back then, this whole next play mentality that Mike McDonald likes to talk about, you'd see it then. He'd have a bad throw, he'd throw a pick, and then he'd come back and go bam, 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 bam against the best team in defense. So to see him actually take those things and apply it and put the season he did, I do think, we talked about it earlier, kind of how perfect the script was on Sunday. The fact that he had that lull, that week 11 did happen, and he had to come back from it and adjust to it. And we all lived through the Russell Wilson era, and I don't mean to shit on Russ. I have all the respect in the world for him. He's one of the legendary players, one of the great players Seahawks all time. But we got tired of the cliches. We got tired of the post-game press conferences where he just said the same shit every single week, right? Yeah, this, that. We believe. And we heard like 8 weeks in a row of Sam Darnold saying, yeah, I need to be smarter there. I need to take better care of the ball there. I need to hold on to the football when there's traffic around me in the pocket. I need to, throw it in the dirt if there's any chance of interception. And then to see those few weeks where he seemed cautious and then to come out of it and play like this, I think that's, in a way, just maybe because I'm a nerd for player development, more satisfying and maybe more important when you think about the long-term ramifications of it than if he had just come out and played consistently all year. Am I crazy?
It's a nice career arc plot twist where, you think it's just going to be the same old ending with same old Sam. No, this ain't same old Sam. This Sam Darnold is for real. Basically, the only other playoff performance I can think of from a Seahawks quarterback would be Russ against the Falcons in 2012. I mean, he threw for almost 400, and the pick he threw was a Hail Mary to Julio Jones. And the only reason that performance gets lost to history is because the defense could not hold water for 30 seconds after an insane 27-7 comeback. 27-7 in the fourth quarter, mind you. Like, that was Russ at his best right there, and it got ruined in the end by the defense. But that was still the divisional round. This is for a trip to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Peter, Brando, Bryce, Dan, Mookie, LFG, Super Bowl, baby. Good to see you. Peter, thank you for the dono. Appreciate it. Feed me more Seahawks with the $5 donation. Let's go, baby. The Pope never fails us. You talk about obscure stats, right? Every year the Seahawks have gone to the Super Bowl, followed a new pope being sworn in. Isn't that the stat? Is that what happened?
That is a stat. And 13 wins. 13 wins or more in those seasons as well.
So is it twisted and dark for me to ask openly what we're going to have to do next year to make that happen? Like, how do we?
I mean, I might have to make a trip to Italy. I might have to make a trip to Italy, Dan. That's I might have to John Wick this stuff.
No,
can we get Nicholas? Maybe Nicholas Cage. Nicholas Cage maybe could sneak in. Maybe a little national treasure thing. I don't know. I don't know about that. We might have to get Jason Bourne involved somehow, some way. All right. Don't want to miss any of you guys here. Feed me more Seahawks. Press the Niner button, please, and thank you. The Niner button, is that the thumbs up?
Damn, fuck the 49ers. Yeah, fuck the 49ers.
Oh, there it is. Hey, you know what? Let me follow that up with a question. Like, when you think about what's happened the last 2 weeks, where let me go back to you on this, Brandon, first. Like, I think it's clear the Rams rivalry has overtaken the 49ers rivalry as far as evenly matched, what we think is going to happen moving forward. Has it? Like the 49ers, after what we did to them back-to-back week, it almost seems like they're going to have to earn their way back into that rivalry.
Well, I think you're right about the fact that this is one where there's a tit for tat between these two coaches where I don't think there's been a solution to either here. And I think it's going to be one that for years to come, like Mike McDonald said, you're going to see a back and forth here. This can be a great battle and you'll feel each side taking their shots and taking their blows. And he has kind of understood, I think, a little bit better what's going on with Shanahan. They are a little bit closer at the end of their Super Bowl window. But I think it does still remain that with that Niner hate that exists, I was seeing Niner fans that were like not quite understanding after the game. Because they were like, I don't get it. Like, Rams lose and then the Seahawks fans are getting together with them and they're like this kumbaya thing after the game. And that it's like, yeah, because we don't have the thing that the Ram fans don't necessarily do that the 49er fans do enforce. I'm sure you can attest to this, Dan, is the toxicity level and coming in just completely being a-holes from the jump and not apologetic. Just like, this is what it's about. This is what being the fans about, man. And so it's like, yeah, you guys kind of make it sometimes hateable and with some of those attitudes. And versus the Rams who were, look, the trash talk was there, but then after the game, it's quickly like, hey, GG's, tip of the cap, all that kind of stuff.
100%. 100%.
Something about the 49ers, man.
Yeah, and I can't put my finger on it. I've tried to look into, I don't know, demographics. The way that Rams fans talk respectful trash before the game, and then if you get the best of them, to a person, after the game, they acknowledge that you got them that day and also how much they're looking forward to this rivalry being like this for quite some time, which it appears that it might have an opportunity to be so. I don't know what it is about Niners fans, man. They talk the most irrational, toxic trash before the game, and then you go beat them 41-6, and they still don't acknowledge that they just got beat 41-6.
Amen.
Yep.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I
think they got to look at their history books and realize how much more the Seahawks have swept the Niners than the other way around in the last 20-something years.
That might be it. Maybe it. But I think maybe part of it too might be a lot of their fan base is so young they don't know what happened 10 years ago. I don't know.
Well, also, they got to explain to their parents. They got to ask their parents what a VCR is. How do you put the VHS tape in to watch the last 49er Super Bowl title?
Yeah, exactly. Dogzilla Monster with the 1212, the most inspired donation I think we've ever received before. Please, I think he's meant to type treat Dan to another beer. If you're threatening me with a beer, hey, threaten me with a good time.
Not another beer.
Don't threaten me with another beer. As long as I've got plenty of Tums on hand, I'll drink all the beers you give me.
All right, we got another one here. McVirus from over on the Hawks Nest with a $5 donation. Goes, where are you all as fired up as I was after Coach Mike's speech after the game?
Yeah,
I think we touched on this. I think the thing I appreciate about Mike McDonald so much is as much as he tries to be cliche, as much as he tries to play things close to the vest and not give things away, we've seen the evolution of how he talks about injuries, and it's kind of gotten to the point where I'm just not going to listen to him anymore about that. But he's also so genuine, and he even talked about it on his 710 show on Monday. Like, he had a little bit of regret about the "we don't care" line. He didn't mean for it to come out that way, and yet it's going to be one of the most iconic post-game lines we've ever heard from a coach. It's going to last for years and years and years. I just appreciate how genuine he is, how real he is. Yeah.
I was fired up the minute Cam got to present the trophy. That was a perfect presenter, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed. Agreed.
Even Jody raising the flag with like beast mode there and Matt Hasselbeck, and you kind of had this like Super Bowl era group up with her as she was, pulling up and raising the flag was kind of a cool thing as well.
Let me ask you guys this, because they always have someone do this. And Super Bowl 48, one of the greatest intro, we've talked about this before, one of the greatest intros of all time, the Kurt Russell piece, right? The voice and just getting you all ready, the hype video before the game. Who does the Seahawks side of the hype video for this Super Bowl this year? There's a couple candidates.
Joel McHale, obviously.
He's got Pratt. You got Joel McHale, Brandon.
I feel like we gotta go a little more. Get a gravelly guy, Get our guy, from The Walking Dead that's been doing the thing.
JDM, right?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
I'd be on.
Jeffrey might be the one.
He would have been my answer too, because he's done some stuff for him. He's done some of those sound, some of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that they've done on their YouTube channel. Josh Lucas has been really
Josh is good. Josh is good too. Josh is good. He's got that voiceover voice, right? He does all of that.
Great. The Home
How's your
Depot.
home camping garden? And so you got to come in hot, because McHale and Pratt would be a little bit too much like a little bit too much poppy energy, I think. And this has got to be like Kurt Russell was. You gotta step in these goddamn thing and get your head turned off. No, you're not. It's got to be a little bit more with that kind of grizzly vibe to me.
And Lucas has really enthusiastically put him out there. He's been on a press junket the last couple of weeks for this show, Palm Royale, and all he wants to talk about is the Seahawks. And every time he talks about it, shout out to our friend Corbin Smith, because it's been a crazy couple of weeks for him, both on the Rich Eisen show and then another, the Kay Adams show, which he did from his car on his iPhone, like the rest of us do sometimes, shouting out Corbin Smith and Locked On Seahawks. A little bit jealous, but he listens to those guys religiously. I thought that was awesome from Josh Lucas, and his enthusiasm for how he feels about this team. I was there when he raised the flag about 20 years ago, and it was one of the coolest 12th man flag raisings that I ever could remember, because I had no idea that he had a history in Washington. Wasn't born and raised there, but his family moved to Gig Harbor when he was in high school, graduated from Gig Harbor High School, has had season tickets to the Seahawks for decades. So when he raised the 12th flag that day, I had no idea, but he's all in. So I kind of like Josh Lucas.
I think I got to go with Jeffrey Dean Morgan now that I think about it.
How about a duo? How about a combined effort?
Yeah. That would work. That would work.
You got to go with one. You got to pick one. Dual narration.
You know what? We're going to be back there next year, right?
Yeah.
So
there we go.
Yeah, win a Super Bowl at the home of the Niners, win a Super Bowl at the home of the Rams.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
Right.
All right, another one, Dono in here from Randy. $5 donation over from the Hawk Nest.
That's a good question.
Goes, when we are Super Bowl champs, any concern how this young nucleus will handle that level of success? I think Mac better suited to handle it than Pete was.
One word answer: no. No concern.
Yeah, I wouldn't as well on this. I do think it's a worry and a concern, because it's not just our team, but you can go through NFL history and see that these teams that don't have as long a run can be upended by what I call the ego, and that the great ego enters in, or who gets credit, right? That was the Legion of Boom thing too. So, you got to be aware of it. I think having John Schneider, who went through it, well, you talk about something that couldn't hurt to help in a major way. And all right, we start sensing the feeling of this or that from a player, starting to swerve into that lane a little bit. We're going to catch it rather than letting clicks develop in a locker room, let's say. But no, I'm with Mookie on this.
I agree, and for two reasons. I think to piggyback on what you were just saying, Brandon, I think he treats everybody the same. He treats everybody fairly and equally, tough but with love. And I think Pete didn't do that after the Super Bowl. He treated people differently, right? There was the Seth Wickersham story about Russell Wilson that everybody dismissed and shit on Wickersham for and didn't believe it. And then 5-6 years later, we came to understand that it was 100% accurate and true. I think the other part of it is that you typically don't have problems with employees if your hiring process is sound in the beginning, and the way that John Schneider has evolved and developed his evaluation process of prospects and what they look for in the person and how they are off the field and how they're wired and what their priorities are, is you basically pre-qualify that ahead of time. Not to say that guys don't change when they get paid and they achieve success. That's always going to happen. But I think it's going to be so rare that you can deal with those on a case-by-case basis in a vacuum, because they do such a good job of identifying the kind of people that they want in the building to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Next one we got here is from, again, Randy with another donation.
Thank you, Randy.
$20 donation from Randy over on the Hawks Nest side of things. Goes, have an awesome video of the crowd with jump around playing. The crowd is literally a life force, absolute pandemonium. Huge hugging randoms. Wifey and I both feel hungover still, and I didn't drink a drop. She did, though.
Hey, Owen, lost your home opener, and everybody was kind of like, oh, no, here we go again. Won 8 out of your last 9 home games. I'd say mission accomplished as far as getting the crowd back at Lumen Field.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well done out there, Randy. You guys brought it in that game.
We talked about it last week on the show. We said it was going to be an atmosphere unlike anything anyone's seen there in 10 years, and it was absolutely accurate. There were not very many Rams fans there at all.
Yep.
Randy back in with another one for $2. Sam, only 9 months older than Herbert, just in prime. That's the other thing about Sam is he is not some old quarterback in his 30s. We're talking about a guy that's just getting into his late 20s and being able to start ascending into that potentially elite area.
Yeah.
Herbert goes behind that line more often, and he's going to have a 45-year-old's body in no time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. He might have an age that's 27, but his body's 33 as it is.
We're going to get through this, guys, as we've got Brandon's got an early flight to catch out. Mookie's got to get up and go to work, and it is almost 1 a.m. here in Mobile for myself.
We got to get Mookie here with Brandon here with us. Are you bringing the cat?
She might. She does not like the slide. She sees the suitcase and she starts getting super stressed out.
Oh, she gets sad.
She's been a little bit like, where are you going?
All right. McVire's back in here from the Hawks with a $5 donation. The one thing we got to do is give Nichemanori his flowers, the highest graded defensive player of the game, Warlord.
Highest graded of the weekend, wasn't he?
I think so.
In all in both games.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was PFF's highest graded player.
We were giving
Just
him
keep coming back to
back in training camp.
Yeah, we were definitely there on that board in the early on this. And look, we were already kind of on that. And I think what sealed it for all of us was just listening to how Corbin was talking about him, knowing that's not the way that Corbin talks about players, and that you went, whoa. I mean, we were already kind of liking him, but this is kind of a whole different speed and where he's going. And the hyperbole was, it wasn't hyperbole, but it was just like, holy crap. So he's the real deal, man. And he's going to be a star on this team in the future.
Well, I hope that his impact might be a little bit more long lasting than that too. I hope fans remember this process and how they went about acquiring him when this year in the draft, the Seahawks take a guy that some fans don't think makes sense, because I think they've proven, John Schneider's proven over the last 5-6 years, certainly. And now since Mike Macdonald's been part of the evaluation process, that, hey, they aggressively moved up to get this guy. They saw something in him, even though the scouting reports, there was no consensus. There was no universal agreement that he's this type of player or not. Some people thought he was physical, some didn't. Some thought he could cover, some didn't. Some thought it was way too high or way too aggressive of a move to go get a guy like that. And then he became exactly the player Mike Macdonald said they thought he could be and that they had plans for. So I think at least for the next few drafts, until I'm proven otherwise, if I ever am, I'm just going to defer. If any mysterious or confusing picks on draft day, they obviously know what they're doing.
Yep.
And not to belabor real quick on this too, though, but did you guys get to see the Ravens talking about Malachi Starks and that little clip that they had out there? And you get an appreciation for the pick, because it's not like everybody would have picked Nick right there. They targeted to select him there, but there's no telling where he would have gone this draft. And that speaks to them understanding his value more than it's like, oh, and they just happened to jump up here to get him.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think, different position groups present different challenges in trying to evaluate how they translate from college to pros. We've all experienced that watching tape. Safety might be the one that stands out the most, just because how college teams use safeties is so different than how they're being used in the NFL now. Now I'm blanking on his name, but the kid from the kid from Notre Dame last year that went to Atlanta.
Watts.
Watts.
Xavier Watts.
Yeah, not fast enough, a little bit of an injury history, not a twitchy enough athlete. He was fantastic. He was absolutely. It's about fit and scheme and how you plan to use him and all that other stuff that might go beyond what we see on tape in college.
All right, we got Peter in here with another $2 donation. Thank you, 49ers and Vikings, for passing on Sam.
Yes.
Yeah, not 49ers, not so much. It's more like thank you
And
for
Raiders.
giving us Clint as well.
And Raiders.
Yeah.
Like Clint Kubiak's not up for the Raider job if they sign Sam Darnold, and Tom Brady, apparently the way the reporting goes, didn't like Darnold and wanted Geno Smith instead. How'd that work out?
We've got one over here from the Hawk Nest. The gamer comes in with Chris Sims sucks. What a clown take. $2 donation.
He's had good takes.
Yeah, but he's had some bad ones recently.
And especially with the Hawks, he's had some bad one recently where it's like, dude, really? Like he seems to kind of go very surfacely on the Hawks lately.
He is one of those guys that seems like he does kind of a bare minimum of prep.
Yeah.
Like he's just
Chip off the old block, I guess you could say.
like there are times when I see him on set and I feel like, okay, something must have happened at home today that distracted him from his study, but he just showed up to the studio anyway and thought he could get by on his game experience and just wing it. And for a prominent national analyst, that seems like a slippery slope.
And we got Gamer back in here with another $2 donation. Till this day, Skip Bayless also sucks. Brainless.
Yep.
I patently reject his 18-minute apology that he was wrong about Sam Darnold the other day. Did you guys see that?
I will not watch a second.
Acho did the same thing. Like all of them that quadrupled down, all of them did the same damn thing, which is like fake ass.
Yes.
It's like tongue in cheek. Like I'm not really doing it. It's like it's the most BS thing. It's like you are so wrong on this, and you don't own it. You'll never own it. Now you're gonna own it, and you're mocking the people who are right and you being wrong. Okay, gotcha.
And that's my thing. If you're as wrong as Skip Bayless was, where literally minutes before the game started, he doubled down as hard as he could, said that there's no way that the Rams were going to lose this game because Sam Darnold was the quarterback on the opposite sideline. So that apology that he issued, fine, make an apology, but it shouldn't be 18 minutes. It should be 18 seconds. It should be record. I was wrong about Sam Darnold. Stop, record.
He didn't make it about
He's got to
LeBron,
insert his
which is
butts.
obviously a shock to everybody.
That's it.
He's always got to insert the butt in there somewhere. But
I got a butt to insert.
Peter Go Hawks comes in with a $2 donation. Thank you, Peter. He goes, we won 6 of 8 games in the NFC West. That's a first.
Yeah, because it's hard to play 8 division games in a season.
It's like Adam Ray said on Rich Eisen about a week and a half ago. He said, it's like they're going to have to win the NFC West twice. And they did.
It is 100%.
Daniel in here from the Hawks Nest with a $2 donation. Spoon started shaky, but won us the game in the end.
Sure did.
Spoon stuck a fork in the Rams season.
Ooh.
You know what Spoon did, guys? He put a nice fork into a lamb chop and
There we go.
beat the Rams season away.
There we go.
You put a fork into one of those filet mignons we had tonight.
Yeah,
with,
exactly. There you
Dolphins in downtown Mobile.
Kevin in from the Hawks Nest with a $2 donation. If Mike wins a Super Bowl in second year, is he better than Pete?
No, we got to give him more time than that, man.
Yeah.
Let's not jump that fast.
Yeah. Let's see how he handles the back-to-back.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Let's see if he has a 10-plus year run like Pete did have.
Yep.
There was
Best
another
start to
remarkable.
any coaching career though that the Seahawks have had. Best start, like this surpasses Knox now. So like this is like the best 2-year start ever, bar none.
And it reminds me of another really cool stat that I saw the other day. I'm sure you guys did too, that, for all the accolades that John Schneider is deservedly getting this offseason, being awarded Pro Football Writers Association Executive of the Year, first GM in NFL history that has been to multiple Super Bowls with a different head coach. Like to be there, to be at the pinnacle, and then not tear it down, but have to go through that transition, make the hard decision to move on from a legendary coach, change your quarterback. I think maybe that might have been part of the stat too. Different head coach, different quarterback.
Different head coach and no players from previous Super Bowl team on roster.
There you go. And to be there again is remarkable. And also shout out kudos to Paul and Jody Allen, because most organizations, man, we've seen it this year more than ever, just don't have that kind of patience, and it just wouldn't happen in most places.
Amen.
Taker in here from the Hawks Nest with a $5 donation. If we win it all and somehow Clint does leave, I hate to see us become next year's Eagles, seeing as their OC left and they fell off big time.
I don't think that'll happen here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Sorry, go ahead, Mookie, on this first.
Well, I'll just go quick here because we've been running quite long. But our quarterback knows how to throw to the middle of the field. So the options for offensive coordinator are significant.
I echo exactly what Mookie says. The problem with this offense and the reason they can't get an OC is not having to do with just Sirianni. It has to do with the fact that the word's out on the street here that Hurts has got to be very managed within that offense. And you can't have an offensive coordinator come in and say, I need to strip your thing down because it's too much for our quarterback. Just think about that conceptually and how ridiculous that is and how much that would instantaneously make you say, no.
And again, the Seahawks have 3 legitimate, solid in-house options if it should come to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they do. All right, what else we got here? We got one back in here from Peter again with a $5 donation. Thank you again, Peter. Bryce, couldn't inbox you. Post them on my Peter Go Hawks Welch. Check them out, guys. Go Hawks. Good night. Super Bowl bound. Got to wake up at 4 a.m.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your support.
As do I, Peter.
Maybe we'll try to, maybe we can play those videos on tomorrow night's stream.
Do it.
All right, and we got our last donation of the night from Trenton Bucket over on the Hawks Nest. $5 donation. There's one guy we have to keep who will keep egos in check. Jaron Reed will snag your ass up and put you in place. Ask D Hall.
He's got 2 years left on his deal.
He does.
Yep.
He's the
Ain't
most
going
senior
nowhere.
guy, I think, from the Pete days who's still here. So, like, it's good for him, too, because he was on
Well,
the one
you-
Chiefs team that didn't make the Super Bowl during their dynastic run. So,
Can you imagine being a rookie and you're up in the locker room and up steps Ernest Jones, flanked by Leonard Williams, flanked by Jaron Reed, flanked by Julian Love, and they walk up to you and question a little bit of your effort and why you ain't bringing it and how quickly that would check you.
the Unc
So,
crew.
just one thing I just wanted to kind of bring up a little bit before we wrap up here with the final whistle of the show, but how awful is it for Tyler Lockett? A guy that gets drafted the year after our 2 Super Bowl runs to then leave and we go back to a Super Bowl. Like, just talk about career unfortunate in a little bit in that regard of not just being able to be a part of at least one Super Bowl run.
Mm-hmm. I feel for him. Yeah, I don't know. People, there were some appalling replies to some the tweet I saw from Seahawks Nerd about, well, he wasn't that good at all that. Like, please just shut up about that. I feel for Tyler. Like, he could have been a part of. He was on the wrong side, wrong place, wrong time. Very productive. Just it didn't happen. The stars didn't align.
Yeah, your heart goes out to him. I mean, it's the same way I think it does for a lot of the Hawks that we've had that've been great Hawks in our career that, kind of fly on the radar. I mean, like Chad Brown's not in the Hall of Fame right now, partly because he didn't get to play on a winner and do what he probably should have been doing his whole career when he was at Pittsburgh when he came here. And, this is what happens at times when you don't. It's also why I love this team because they seem to have recognized, I call it like time traveler. It's like you have young guys, and when you're young, you can all attest to this. You think you're living forever. You think everything's going to last forever. And so you can't really capture the spirit of what an old man would say to that younger man. You're like, hey, no, take full advantage of this. Do everything. Be all in today. Don't think about partying tonight. Be connected to this process. Drive, do everything you can. The young man kind of goes, there's always time. There's always time. So to capture that spirit, for them to get that sense of urgency on this team being the 3rd youngest in football, just one of the many impressive parts about what they've done to be able to accomplish that, how hard it is. But Tyler, sorry, I took that off in a different direction. Shout out to him, man. It does suck to see. But this is why the NFL can be so brutal and why you want to just, to me, savor this so much when you get to have it, because there's so many that are on the bad end of it, the tough end of it, the brutal end of it, the unfair end of it.
Totally agree. And so, guys, with that, we're going to wrap up tonight's show. Sorry again for the technical issues we had earlier. I know the start time got pushed back a little bit, but we'll have that all sorted for the rest of the week.
My fault. It's my fault. My fault. We'll fix it tomorrow.
It's Walmart's fault. It's Walmart's fault, Dan. Come on.
Yeah,
We're gonna sound and look better tomorrow.
Don't take responsibility when you can blame it on a corporate conglomerate.
Yeah, blame it
I
on
always
corporate
use that
company,
rule
man.
of
It's
thumb.
always the corporate
The guy was way more concerned with getting out of there tonight and closing the store than he was with helping me find my one cable that they said they had in stock. So I'll just, to your point, I'll say that.
But tomorrow there will be less screens on the stream as the three of us, Brandon, myself, and Dan, will all be here. And Mookie will be in Oregon on the other side away from us where, it might be a little bit warmer depending on what the weather throws at us tomorrow. But I'm Bryce, Hawks Eye. That's Dan, Seahawks Forever. That's Brandon Kane up in the one corner from the Hawks Nest. And Mookie Alexander from Field Goals. We are the Seahawks Syndicate, and we also have our own channel. So if you would be so kind, please subscribe to all of our channels, wherever you may be watching from. And we'll see you guys tomorrow with more Senior Bowl and Seahawks news as the day comes. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.